people use a thing like finding beauty in ugliness, and that's a stupid thing to say. It's not about finding beauty in ugliness. It's about appreciating ugliness, and that if you don't appreciate
Yes.
ugliness, you can't appreciate beauty. If you don't appreciate stupidity for its foibles and what it says about our weaknesses, you can't appreciate strength or intelligence. And people make that, art is not truth. Art is not beauty. It can contain truth. It can contain beauty. This actor I interviewed today was he was the only actor so far, and he's my 14th actor interview. I think every other actor has talked about acting, talking about the truth of the moment and whatnot. And I said, he used the word reality. And I said, you're the only actor that used the term reality. And he actually agreed with some of the things I'm saying, that acting or art cannot be truth. It is fake, and it has to get to reality. And it's interesting because, if you do the math, I guess 1 in 14 is maybe 7%. I'd be surprised if 7% of the overall human population would even understand that kind of a difference. I brought that up to another person I interviewed, I think last week. I said, the difference between truth and reality. Oh, no, when I was doing this, it was a podcast I was interviewed for that hopefully in the next week or two will come out once the guy gets it online. I tried to explain the difference between truth and reality to him, and he didn't seem to get it. But I don't know. I'll have to follow up with him.
Also, speak about. Do you have any kind of insight into the successors of John Lindsay?
There's been a lot of mayors since then. What mayor? Which one do you want to talk about? I mean,
Well,
I left.
anyone post your time in New York, do you have any kind of insight into that? It would just
No.
be interesting because I know that you have ideas of going back to New York if you would set it in the 60s again or the 70s, or if you would push it up to present times.
Well, I'm going to have a book that I totally called The Grand and the Glorious, which is going to be about the demise of the Maravelli family. Once what I'm setting up, what I set up in the spy book, when you get to read that, is that the secondary character from the Vincetti brothers, Joey Greco, ends up by the mid to late 90s becoming the de facto head of the Maravelli family. Big Frank is still the boss, but Joey Greco becomes what's called the day boss. He's the face of the family. He's the guy who's sort of the sexy, glamorous boy, and he takes over the family. But eventually, once I get to do that book in the next 2, 3, 4 years, The Grand and the Glorious, because the ideas have to come to me, but that's going to be a book where I'm following a dual narrative. It's going to be half of it is going to be set in the late 60s, early 70s, where Joey Greco gets his start and he looks up to another character from another book of mine, a character called Sally Trengese. Sally T, which was a real person I knew who first appeared actually in my memoirs, True Life, and then I fictionalized him to appear in some of these New York novels. And so that's going to follow a track where we're going to see the 60s and 70s. We're going to see the start of Joey Greco's career in crime before he met Gino Vincetti in the mid 70s. And then the rest of the book will be set 50 years later when he's an old man, Joey Greco, and we're going to find out, and I can say it, that Joey Greco is actually the one who knocks off Big Frank. So just as Big Frank was Paulie's protege and ended up killing him, the guy that Big Frank installs as the day boss ends up betraying him and killing him. We're going to think it's Tony Luft in the book. I've left clues at the end of the Norwegian with that whole Spiders of Eden thing, that perhaps Tony Luft is the one who kills Big Frank, because we find out Big Frank dies in 2014. But we're going to find out that's really Tony Luft didn't do it, that it was really Joey Greco. And I've got a good scenario where Tony Luft apparently had a young protege, and we think it's Tony Luft's protege that off Big Frank, because there's that scene at the end where Big Frank kills off everyone, where he makes fun of Tony Luft and he says, "Get the fuck out of here, you idiot." And so he lets loose finally on his contempt for Luft. And so we think maybe Luft pulls the thing like where he killed his uncle because of the goldfish and Vincetti brothers. But we find out in this book that Tony Luft supposedly died in 2004 or 2005, so it couldn't have been him. So I'm going to have Joey Greco. So I will go back to the New York of that, but that's going to be, since I haven't lived in New York since 1991. It's only going to be in sort of the New York of the mind, because I'm not going to write it. I don't care about it. It's going to be set just like I'm in a sense freed to do the science fiction book and my vision of the future of humanity expanding out into the galaxy. That New York is just going to be sort of New York just in name only. There'll be some echoes of the New York I knew, but I can't write with any expertise about modern New York.